What's happening, guys? Welcome to Let's Talk Comics, and today I want to talk about Marvel Comics. A lot of times when I'm online, I will see a lot of people talking about Marvel, and they talk about the current state that Marvel is in. They will talk about, Marvel needs to reboot. Marvel needs to fire this person. Marvel needs to do this. Marvel needs to do that. And one of the statements that I always see that drives me up the wall is I will see people say, Marvel has not made any good books since blank insert time period here. Now, what I find really funny about that is I will see some people say Marvel has not made any good books in the past 10 years, past 20 years, the past 40 years, whatever, which I find incredibly funny and tells a lot about itself, because you've got one person who says Marvel hasn't made anything good in the past 20 years and another person who says Marvel hasn't made anything good in the past 40 years, which just goes to tell me that it's all about what you like, what your taste is, but when people say Marvel doesn't put out anything good, and right now DC is killing Marvel, and Marvel just needs to hang it up and let DC handle their characters, and I think that's just absolutely insane. And I think a lot of it is a lot of bots or grifters or people who don't know what they're talking about. Now, I am not going to sit here and say the DC is not hot right now. DC is hot as a pistol right now. Absolute Universe is absolutely, pun intended, crushing everything. The sales, the hype, everything right now, DC is on fire. Compared to right now, Marvel is, Marvel doesn't have the hype that DC has right now. I think Stevie Wonder could see that. That's not up for debate. Marvel, but that doesn't mean that Marvel's not putting out quality products. It's you can't be one of my favorite sayings is you can't be player of the week every week. And as someone who has read comics for over 40 years, these things come and these things go. Marvel's on top for a while. Sometimes DC's on top for a while. Then Marvel will do something, and then they'll take off. And then DC will fumble a ball, and they'll take a dip, or vice versa. But I really want to push back on the statement that Marvel doesn't have anything out there right now. So what I did is I went upstairs and I grabbed a stack of stuff, and I want to talk about all the good stuff that Marvel has right now. Right here on the top, we've got Jed MacKay, Mark Spector, Moon Knight. Jed MacKay has been on Moon Knight. I believe this is his third volume or fourth volume of working on Moon Knight, and it's always incredibly well received. He's always working with a great artist. Like right here, we see Devmalia Premanik. I'm sure I butchered that name, and I apologize if he ever sees that. But, look at this. Great page, great artwork, more strong artwork. So you've got beautiful work here. You've got the craftsmanship of Jed MacKay, his prowess as a writer, and there must be something to this book, because Jed MacKay continually is on it. He's been working on Moon Knight for like 5 years, 6 years, something like that, and it's always well received. So this is another strong book right here. Then the next book we have, another Jed MacKay book, X-Men with Nathan Diaz. Now, I will say about this book here, the story has not really grabbed me very much, but however, the artwork that Diaz puts into this book It's just beautiful. It's a great shot right here of Quentin Quire. We've got another great team shot right here. And also, it's not just art. Even though the story hasn't been incredibly strong to me, there's still great moments. We have a depowered Magneto interacting with a Quentin Quire. Jed MacKay has really been doing really great stuff with Magneto since he lost his abilities. So you got X-Men. It's another strong book. Uncanny X-Men by Gail Simone. Not particularly one of my favorites, but I do like the interaction with Gambit and Rogue. Sometimes they seem to dominate this book. I don't particularly care for the outlier characters, but Gambit and Rogue, that's always strong storytelling. That's always good work right there. They're always, I'm always here for their interactions. Plus, it's set in, we see so many people say, can we get superheroes out of New York? Can we get superheroes out of New York? This is set in New Orleans, very original setting for the X-Men. They're so big city, big town, oriented, that kind of having them in a slower, more country, rural setting works really good. I like to compare this book to Chris Claremont's New Mutants, in that you have the pre-established characters here, like Rogue, Gambit, Jubilee, Wolverine, Nightcrawler, and they're working with the outliers, who are the newest incarnations of they're brand new characters, very new mutants, and so they're in the mentor role. So like I said, not a powerhouse book, but still very solid read. Benjamin Percy, who I'm a huge fan of, very good on very good on Deadpool. He has had this story right here. He really captures the violence of Deadpool. This has been a very brutal book, and it also has that sort of toilet humor that Wade Wilson, Deadpool, does. I mean, look at that. You've got a easy poo, you got a laxative joke right there. And it also incredibly violent as well, which we know Deadpool does. So that's another solid book. Then Chip Zdarsky on Captain America. Chip Zdarsky is also leading the current Marvel event, Avengers Armageddon, which all spins out of this book right here. And Chip has taken Captain America, and he has really put his stamp on him, and basically telling a story of Cap working with the military when he is fresh out of the ice. Another strong book here. This just came out recently, X-Men Outback by Steve Orlando, and I found this to be incredibly faithful to the Outback era that Chris Claremont had. Steve Orlando, not one of my favorite writers, and not somebody who I, have read a ton of stuff by. The stuff I have read by him, I haven't been blown away. But this right here was definitely shocking to me to see how great that he was able to capture that vibe of the Outback. So if you're someone who's like, the X-Men hasn't been good since Claremont was on there, check this out. This is very much in the same vein. Spider-Man is always someone who's a topic of contention on the internet. People talking about Spider-Man and the way he's treated. This is the new book, Spectacular Spider-Man, Brand New Day, by a longtime Spider-Man writer, Dan Slott. And I have found this to be really good. He has Punisher in there, and we see a Punisher who is not as violent as the Punisher in the ongoing book, kind of more of a superhero style Punisher, him teaming up with Spider-Man. But this has been another very solid book. Spider-Man Long Way Home. This is a mini-series by Jonathan Hickman and Andy Kubert. Is it Andy or Adam? I always get those two mixed up. Adam, I'm sorry. I like to think this is an out of continuity book because I kind of feel like it just fits better that way. Really beautiful Kubert work. Great shot of the Punisher right here. Great establishing shot of them leaving the helicopter. Then really beautiful double page shot right here of all these Hydra agents and then the Hulk in the background. Very solid miniseries right here. Now you want to talk about really great book. Stephanie Phillips on Daredevil. This continues to be one of my favorite reads every week. She blew. I was not very familiar with her at all before I read this first issue of Daredevil, and she blew me away. And another couple of issues that are as strong as the first three have been, and I can consider putting her on my Mount Rushmore of Daredevil writers. That's how great her work has been. I really think she is knocking on the door of something special. Infernal Hulk by Philip Kennedy Johnson. Now, he was on Hulk on a previous volume, which ended, I believe, I'm not sure what issue it ended at, but they relaunched it as Infernal Hulk. And he's doing a lot of very different things here with Hulk. You know, you see a lot of supernatural horror with the Hulk. You know, you see a lot of Cthulhu-style monsters that Philip Kennedy Johnson has introduced. Really cool stuff here. One of my favorite books out right now, Ryan North, who we'll see later on, Doom Quest. I have been calling this Dr. Doom meets Quantum Leap. This is a 10 or 12 issue miniseries, I believe, and essentially Dr. Doom is quantum leaping throughout time to try to make changes that will influence changes that will make Latveria a powerhouse. But Ryan North is someone that really has a very great take on Doom, and he really lets it rip right here in this miniseries. Amazing Spider-Man, you know, this is another book here. A lot of people are very critical of it, but I think what they have done, I didn't enjoy it very much initially. To me, it took off when Spider-Man went into outer space. I enjoyed seeing Joe Kelly put him in an environment that was very uncomfortable for him, and the stuff they've done where they introduced Cormac Crane, Peter's cousin that he never knew existed. I know a lot of people say that that is very soap opera-ish, but I mean, if you ever read comic books, come on. You know, that's essentially what it is. And this issue here also has really beautiful Patrick Gleason art. I like this shot right here. This is a shot of Cormac and Pete after both learning everything that has went on. So we see the rain coming down, and then we see the expressions, and they tell the whole story after just having the bombshell dropped on them. Amazing Spider-Man, really good. A lot better than what he gets credit for. Benjamin Percy, this is his ongoing Punisher book. Really, really great. Very violent, very bloody. This issue here in particular I found very strong. Frank doesn't speak any dialogue in it. He essentially just is in the background and he's doing action and everything. But Benjamin Percy, as I've said before, he was born to write Frank Castle. And this is another solid book. And then we've got my favorite Marvel book out right now, and has been for quite a while, Ryan North on Fantastic Four. Just issue in and issue out. I think Ryan North has been on this book now for maybe 2 years, maybe a little longer. But Ryan North, it's just a treat every time he gets an issue of Fantastic Four out. I enjoy it so much. he treats these characters with the utmost respect. And you'll see that in all of these books. All of these books, these creators, they treat these characters with respect. They know what the characters are all about, and they get it. They get it. They get what they're about. And, you know, I think a lot of people, especially in regards to Spider-Man, they say, well, Spider-Man needs to be happy. Spider-Man needs to be happy, this, that, and the third. You know, this isn't, you know, Spider-Man's whole life is not going to be rainbows and puppy dogs. You know, the term Parker Luck exists for a reason. Every time something is about to go his way, something happens and it comes crashing down. You know, things just don't work out for him. People want Spider-Man to have a happy ending. And, you know, maybe he's just happy being Spider-Man. But now, one thing I will say, all of these books here, all very solid books. Now, there is no buzz. There's not a lot of buzz on any of these books. You know, if you are reading these books, you know, then you came to these books through organic means. You didn't really get like an advertising bubble. No advertising or no variant cover pushed you to Uncanny X-Men or pushed you to X-Men or whatever. You know, it was just something you were reading prior, or someone grabbed you in the shop and turned you on to this, you know. So they're not these books aren't moving numbers like Absolute Batman is, but nothing is, you know. But that doesn't mean that they're bad books. So when people say Marvel doesn't have any talent and they're not putting out any good books right now, to that just tells me you don't know what the hell you're talking about, and you haven't been inside a comic book shop and God knows how long, and you're just some online troll or whatever. But as for someone who is in the comic book shop and who is reading great books, Marvel's got great books out there. Don't let people lie to you and make you think that they don't. You know, I recommend all these books right here to anybody. You know, that's not to say that Marvel doesn't have a couple of issues that I wish they would work out. You know, one of the valid criticisms about Marvel is they're constantly canceling books and relaunching new number ones, and that is kind of a bummer or whatever. But what I say to that is, you know, if they're canceling and relaunching, at least it gives you a good place to start. It answers the question of, where do I start? Because they're going to collect the previous run and trade paperback. You can just pick it up, you know. That's how I view that. But long story short, don't let people tell you Marvel's not putting out great work, because they are. They're putting out great stories every week in your comic book shop and on the shelf. If you see any of these and you're not reading them, do yourself a favor and go pick them up. I think you'll be really surprised and you'll enjoy what you read. So till next time, I will talk to you guys later. Have a good day, and bye-bye.